Good evening once again. We're going to go ahead and start our program with the hopes of bringing Mayor Lee Harris on as soon as he is able to join the call. My name is Lakeithia Glenn and I'm the Executive Director of LITE Memphis. I would like to thank you all for joining our town hall today, the student edition. And I would like to thank the mayors of Shelby County and Memphis for taking the time out of their busy schedule to have this very important conversation. The recent unrest around the world has shown the mission of LITE is as relevant as ever. Our political, racial, and economic climate has increased the need for equitable access, representation, ownership, and everything that it takes for us to move our country forward. We are even more focused here at LITE on our future and on carrying out our mission of closing the wealth gap by equipping students with 21st century professional development skills. The work that we do at LITE is instrumental in addressing the issues of poverty and inequity and inequality. Our program is a premier entrepreneurship program for high school students, and it helps develop a mindset for students to be profitable and move forward with passion and without fear. Our city's history is both rich and complex. We cannot undo generations of injustice with a single policy or action. But I commend the city of Memphis and Shelby County for stepping up during these very challenging times to financially support LITE in our mission here in Shelby County. As we turn our sights on identified solutions to address years of injustice, the voices that have rang out the loudest have been that of our youth. From Snapchat to TikTok, they made their voices heard. So tonight's forum is the opportunity for us to further our collective efforts to empower our youth to lead and show the exceptional future that Memphis has ahead. It is my honor to turn our program over to our moderator for the evening, Marissa Pittman. She's a LITE Innovation Fellow and founder of Pumps in Politics, which activates young women of color to get involved in the political process. She's the winner of the National Civil Rights Museum Keeper of the Dream Award in 2019, and a freshman at Dillard University. With no further ado, Marissa Pittman.
Hello, and welcome to LITE Memphis's live virtual town hall. This is the student edition with the mayors of Memphis and Shelby County, where our leaders take us from here. I am honored to have been asked to moderate this very important conversation between the students of LITE Memphis and the mayors of Memphis and Shelby County. Mayor Jim Strickland has been the mayor of the city of Memphis since 2016, and Mayor Lee Harris has been the mayor of Shelby County since 2018. Thank you for being here. I will ask questions that have been submitted from students prior to tonight's event, and we will have LITE Innovation Fellows on the panel to ask their questions directly. We will ask our distinguished guests to keep their responses to 1 minute. Our first question is for Ms. Glenn and Mayor Strickland. In 2019, Wallet Hub compared more than 400 U.S. cities based on 30 key indicators of academic, social, and economic growth potential. Memphis ranks number 290 out of 415 cities overall. These factors are contributing to what is known as brain drain, when more educated residents move on to larger cities. First, Ms. Glenn, can you speak about the work that LITE Memphis is doing around this issue?
LITE was created over 7 years ago to equip students with the skills to bridge wealth gaps and ensure that they're breaking down the barriers that oftentimes plague African American and Latinx communities. Those barriers are usually the lack of financial resources and limited access to the right networks and inability to gain high-wage jobs. We've worked alongside so many amazing partners in our city, like Bridges, Code Crew, the Cruise Center, Epicenter, and countless others to provide students with the money they need to start their venture and an adequate pipeline of support to help them throughout their adulthood. We're working to create an entrepreneur pipeline within our city with our partners to ensure that there's a continuum of support for entrepreneurs in our area. What is important to realize that we know that 83% of students who have internships in the area usually work in that area. So we have worked feverishly to ensure that our students are gaining valuable internship experience here in the city, so they're thinking of making their careers or starting their businesses right here in Memphis and Shelby County.
Thank you for sharing. The work that LITE Memphis does is extremely important. Mayor Strickland, do you have a plan for keeping college graduates in Memphis?
Yes, let me talk about that in a second. First, I want to thank you for having me. Um, it's an honor to be here. And I also want to say on the front end, I don't have all the answers. I have a lot, but I don't have them all. So if after watching us for a half hour and you say, man, Strickland really missed the mark, he should have on this said ABC, or I have a good thought on some matter, I wouldn't mind getting back together with y'all and hearing from you instead of you hearing from me. So, keep that in mind, please. This is a good example. There is no one magic answer on retaining young people like you. But what I've tried to do, particularly for young people, are grow jobs and improve our quality of life here. If you can make a living and it's a good place to live, I think that's the best way that we can bring you here. On jobs, we've worked really hard in collaboration with the chamber and other economic development drivers. But I've also tried to take a lead, particularly for college age people. There's a company in Memphis called Service Master. They are a Fortune 1000 company. 2 weeks after I became mayor, the governor told me, man, this is really bad news about Service Master. They were about to leave. They had 1 foot out of Memphis. And we went to work hard for the next 3 or 4 or 5 months, trying to convince their leadership team that Memphis was the place to do. They not only stayed in Memphis, they moved downtown and converted an old mall next to the Peabody Hotel into a really cool office space with like 1,700 good paying jobs. Those are the kind of jobs that young people like you would be attracted with. FedEx has expanded. So what we've done is really work with companies to grow jobs and giving tax. Some of the questions later on talk about the tax incentives, and we can talk about that. I know I only have a minute, but I don't shy away from using tax incentives because it results usually in more taxes paid and more jobs.
Thank you for answering that question. And speaking about Memphis's vision, can you tell us more about the Memphis 3.0 plan and your perspective on how to help envision the city?
Memphis 3.0, that plan is one of the things I'm most proud of. Between the time I got elected in October of 2015 and sworn in January 1 of 2016, we sent a team of people to Denver and Nashville. Those are 2 cities that are really growing. And as much as I love Memphis, I can't say that traditionally we've been growing in population. We've been kind of static, kind of the same. And one of the things those 2 cities point to is regular comprehensive planning. And we hadn't had a plan since I was your age, a long time ago, because you can see the gray hair. That was a long time ago. 40 years. So we came up with this plan. We went to every neighborhood in the city. 15,000 Memphians took part. What did they envision their neighborhoods to look like? It was the first comprehensive plan in 40 years. I think it was the first plan for every neighborhood in Memphis ever. Every neighborhood in Memphis has a plan right now. It's a roadmap to growth. Bottom line, real short, and I've probably already gone over a minute. Memphis is large. We're 340 square miles. 340 square miles. That's really large geographically. We're bigger than New York City. We're bigger than Chicago. Boston, which is a big city, is only 50 square miles. We're 340. So we kept growing out and out. We need to grow up and get more density in. You go to Chicago, New York, Boston, those cities, it's a dense area, and it's easier to serve a city like that. It's easier to do so many more things. Public transportation is better in cities like that. So bottom line, it's a roadmap for growth for every neighborhood. We're trying to invest in the core and in the inner city as opposed to the suburbs. One example of that, we used to extend sewer lines outside the city limits out into what we call the county. We stopped that when I became mayor because we're going to focus on the city. And I'm sorry I'm taking more than a minute.
Well, thank you for sharing about the plan. And just really quickly, how can people view the plan online?
It's on our city website. I forgot what the city website is now, but if you just Google City of Memphis or Memphis 3.0, you'll find it. Now, to be honest with you, it is so large, it's probably 400 pages long if you printed it out. But it's if you're interested in that, it's an interesting read.
Okay, and I want to make sure that we get to all of our questions. So now I'm going to pass it over to Timothy Walker, and he has a question for you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yes, and my question for you is, what are some social and economic changes you all are making to appeal to youth between ages 16 and 21 who are considering maybe starting a business or making a career here in Memphis and Shelby County?
Okay, in addition to the jobs and quality of life I talked about in the first answer, there's a couple other things, particularly what we're doing. We've really dove deep into business entrepreneurship. And there's a lot of groups doing that. Y'all are doing it. There's other groups doing it, but city government, we're doing it too, particularly so that we can contract with a more diverse business ownership group. But as part of that, we also have an office that helps businesses grow. Memphis is a city of entrepreneurs. Y'all probably have learned that from, Holiday Inn to FedEx to the first self-service grocery store. All these businesses grown here. In addition to that, what we try to do, particularly for 16 to 21-year-olds, you said making a career or starting a business. Let me talk about making a career. We're the only state in the country to have free community college or tech school. Free. Thanks to Governor Haslam, and now Governor Lee has kind of expanded that in the state legislature. That's an incredible gift that we're giving, that you can learn skills, you can get a degree or certificate, and get trained up to do almost any job that we have available in Memphis. I didn't create it, but what I try to do is use it to recruit businesses, recruit jobs, and tell young people, and then frankly, older people, because there's no age limit. You can be as old as I am if you already don't have a college degree or certificate and go back and get that.
That was a great question. Our next question will come from Julian Cross. Julian.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor Strickland. So my question, I'll just get right to the point. So in 2019, the University of Memphis released a poverty report. And one of the questions that was asked was, why is poverty high in Memphis? And the following response was given. So it said one possible explanation is that the labor market in Memphis tends to consist of unskilled workers. So in reference to unskilled workers, where is the investment of corporations in Memphis in the labor force with training and benefits, specifically from those companies that come to Memphis and participate in the payment in lieu of taxes or pilot program?
Let me set out the challenge and then the solution, kind of expound on what you said. Some of our challenges: only 25% of third graders read at third grade level. 15 to 20% of our high schoolers drop out. And of the 80% or so who actually graduate, less than 20% are college ready. So they don't have the skills necessary to go to college or to get a job. That's the challenge. The solution is 9 out of 10 businesses that I go visit, and I proactively go visit businesses, 9 out of 10 are starving for workers. So we have all these young people who are looking for opportunities, and we have all these businesses who want a skilled workforce. So to me, it sounds like we got to get these folks married. And the opportunities we have is post-secondary education in Tennessee. If you go to a traditional four-year college, is really affordable. Or, as I said, two-year college, community college or tech school are free. Let me give you an example. We are the second biggest city in the country for medical device manufacturing. Y'all are too young, but you might have a grandparent who's had to have a knee replaced or a hip replaced. We're the second largest place that makes those. We have probably a dozen or more companies that make them. I went to one of those companies last year, 2 years ago, and I won't say which one, but they say they have to turn away manufacturing positions at their facility to other places that have manufacturing, other cities, because they can't find enough qualified workers here. The starting pay is $19.50 an hour plus benefits. It's a good job, and the pay goes up from there. So we've got to get more folks trained up to be these, to handle these jobs, these good paying jobs, and we have that opportunity. One other solution, and I didn't mention, was we got to improve early childhood literacy. And I see Mayor Harris has joined the city of Memphis, Shelby County, and the Shelby County schools all teamed up so that I believe next fall, pre-K for 4-year-olds will be universally available for free for every family who wants it, who can't afford it. I sent my kids to pre-K, but I could afford to do it. Every family who can afford to do it does it, because you know you want your kid to get a head start and be able to read and recognize letters. We're building up to it, and next year, I talked about the 25% of third graders reading at third grade level. We got to move that up. It's got to be 75. It's a shameful number, 25%. Not shame on y'all because you're too young to have done anything on it, but shame on us for allowing that situation to get there. But better days are ahead on that.
Thank you for that response. I'd like to welcome Mayor Lee Harris to our conversation. And Mayor Harris, I have a question for you. In February, the Shelby County Youth Council held a youth summit. I know that COVID-19 has shifted your focus. However, how has your administration implemented these policy changes that were suggested around poverty, transportation, crime, and mental health?
So thanks for that question, and apologies, I'm a little late here. I was clicking on the wrong link. So COVID has changed it all, how you get onto these things. And but I'm glad to be here, and thank you for your question. The Shelby County Youth Council has really worked really hard to deliver a lot of policy recommendations and to participate actively in the process. They've testified before the Shelby County Commission, and they have done a great job working with bridge builders to convene people of like age and convene a really diverse group of young folks around this community to meet on various topics. So I've met with them a number of times. And as you said, it kind of culminated into their convention. They had a convention in the spring. It feels like 100 years ago now because of COVID, but they did have a convention in the spring. They made a number of recommendations. I think we advanced the ball on basically all of their issues one way or another. COVID has just thrown things in a different direction at this point, and so that's the focus of most of the day right now. But with respect to transit, we did work on a major program with respect to transit. We did get some money devoted to transit, so probably about $1 million a year in dedicated transit funding. We're going to come back to that issue and work on that some more. Mental health, we have an Office of Mental Health at Shelby County Government, and so that's an issue that we are getting ready to ramp up on. And so that's coming down the pike real soon, is how we can make sure that those who are in need of mental health services are receiving those mental health services. We're working on that. Poverty is kind of an overarching issue that we're always working on. The COVID has made that even more of a serious challenge at this point, because COVID has brought not just a threat to our public health, but it's also brought a lot of economic dislocation. And so, we just we're meeting some with the state recently about our unemployment numbers, and a lot of folks, I can't remember what it was now, but it's at least over 80% of a lot of the economic dislocation and unemployment we have right now is related to COVID at this point. So we're working on all those things. Eviction, city and county have created an eviction fund to help those folks that have been thrown out of their house. That's a real tough project because the eviction fund works client by client. So we work with each one of those tenants and each one of those landlords to try to see if we can come up with a solution. So all those efforts at poverty relief are ongoing right now, and transit and so forth. On the public safety front, for us, Shelby County government, we do some law enforcement, but mostly the city of Memphis has law enforcement. We do mostly detention, and so we have 4 detention facilities, and so we're always thinking about how do we expand more opportunity for folks who are re-entering our society after having been detained or arrested or served a prison stint. That's really an important part of public safety because people often talk about recidivism rates. Recidivism rates is a reflection of the second crime committed. That is, you go to prison once for a crime, and then you come back out and commit a second crime. And so that second go ahead. I'll stop right there. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
It's okay. We have very limited time.
You're right.
However, I would love if each of you could stay on just 5 more minutes so that we can have a deeper discussion about this question that I'm going to ask you next. And it is, what policies will your administrations implement to start the process of dismantling systems of oppression to make our county and our city an equitable place for all?
All right, so I guess I'll start here. That's a big question. And I just want to go ahead and give some context about how I think about my role. And I like to think about my role, and I even campaign this way as being an effective partner to the community. So I know sometimes people think about politicians as heroes or Superman, and the reality is although there are substantial powers associated with local government, the powers are not unlimited. And so what I intend to always do is to try to find those folks in the community that have real great ideas about how to advance the community's interests and partner and do my role, have my effort to help support those roles. So with respect to equity in our community, I mean, there's a whole lot of things we can do to promote more equity. One of the things we're focused on right now is neighborhoods and blight and investments in neighborhoods. We just kicked off the county's first sanitation program, which will apply to a very small section of our county, but it's really important because we want to get more into the cleanups and beautifying our community and so forth. With respect to, if you're talking about equity like racial justice, obviously racial issues have been around for a long time. And the best kinds of things we can do is convene people of different perspectives and make sure that people are heard and that the kinds of things that government does, it does for everyone. So maybe that's the start of it. Maybe we can have more conversation as I hear more of your thoughts. Thanks very much.
I just want to springboard on what Mayor Harris just said. Well, first, city government, we have 7,000 employees, so we need to treat our employees fairly. We have a diverse workforce and a diverse leadership. We've improved their pay and benefits. Sanitation workers, the reason Dr. King was here in 1968 was for the sanitation workers. What we did was we awarded the living sanitation workers a $75,000 tax-free grant. It can't make up for the indignities that they suffered, but it was just a token of our appreciation for their leadership. In addition to that, the solid waste workers, which is what we call sanitation workers now, for the first time ever, we added in something for their retirement system. They have a retirement system that is equal to other city employees for the first time ever. And we did that 2 years ago. We try to lead by example. Our contracting, I mentioned it with minority and women businesses. When we took office, it was 12%. Now it's 20%. It needs to be higher, but we're growing that. And better services. I've talked about pre-K, but I want to pick up on something that Mayor Harris said, and I really appreciate his leadership on transit. Even though that's a quote city function, the county for the first time ever is starting to get involved in that. All these opportunities I talked about earlier about the jobs and the workforce development and the free community college, it doesn't mean anything if you can't get there. And I think Mayor Harris can correct me if I'm wrong. We estimate 10 to 15% of our population doesn't have regular access to a vehicle. We've got to improve our public transportation system. It is poor now. It really is. But it's not because it's mismanaged. It's because it's grossly underfunded. And we got to figure out how to better fund it.
That's a great point about transit. And I think especially for youth, a lot of us either don't have cars or are too young to take the test to have cars. So having that public transportation is a great point. So Lauren Rounds has the next question. Lauren, the floor is yours.
Hi, Mayor Jim Strickland. Hi, Mayor Lee Harris. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Mayor Lee Harris, you already touched on this, but I wanted to get more in depth about it. The coronavirus pandemic has had a profound impact on low-income communities of color. In recent weeks, during the height of the virus spikes and civil unrest, we've seen many families and children being displaced from their homes. How do you all plan on handling that as far as these children going to school and doing what they need to do during the school year, and these families being displaced throughout the communities in Shelby County and Memphis?
Yeah, so we, even before COVID, there's probably 2,500 evictions every month in the courts, one way or another in Shelby County. So we have a substantial number of eviction activity in Shelby County. That's only exacerbated by COVID, and the challenges of finding a new place to stay are exacerbated as well. So as I said before, we've got the city county fund, which helps some, and we're going to look at putting additional investment in the city county fund. I know the city of Memphis also set up an MLG&W support fund. If we haven't put in that already, we're going to be considering what we can add to that utility assistance fund. And we do have some utility assistance programming, but whether or not we do something additional, we're going to look at as a county. We also have heard some stories about folks being evicted who have COVID. And so we're working really hard to make sure that folks that have COVID are actually given the kind of supports that they need. And so that includes things like hotels. If you've got COVID or been tested positive for COVID, Shelby County and so forth have different kinds of supports in terms of hotels and meals, and even some income supports if you have to miss work because you're quarantined because you've tested positive for COVID. So we're trying to get the word out a little bit better about those programs. We're in the process of rolling out something for the process servers so that the process servers don't accidentally evict someone who's actually tested positive for COVID when we can move that person to a hotel or some other place, other residential setting. So if you have contracted COVID or have a serious threat of COVID, I think there's some real great things in place. And with respect to those folks that have just been affected because of the economy, I think we're all working hard to try to figure out how to dedicate more resources to those challenges, because it's a lot of folks out there right now. So we really need a lot of folks who are working on that.
The only thing I would add is on the joint eviction, it's a joint program. It's really well designed. I think it's 100% funded on the county and city side by federal money that we got under what they call the CARES Act, which was passed by Congress to give us help to help people in your cities and counties. And we're getting lawyers to volunteer their time, either law students or lawyers, to volunteer their time to represent. And as Mayor Harris said earlier, it's every individual case is treated differently. So it's a lot of hands-on work. There was a moratorium stopping all evictions until fairly recently. So we don't know exactly how the program's working, but it's probably been in effect for a month or so, and it's really well designed. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't really help a lot.
That was a great question, Lauren. Our next question comes from Jalen Washington. Jalen.
Hello, Mayor Harris and Mayor Strickland. Hope you all are well. My question is, in January of 2019, the city of Memphis released Buy 901, a public database of local minority and women-owned businesses. The purpose of Buy 901 was to build equity in our economy and attack poverty. So this is a three-part question. We may not get to all of it. However, has the registry been as effective as you'd hoped? And if so, how?
It has been, but that alone is not going to make up for all the inequities. But it's a little slice of what I talked earlier about how we've improved our contracting with MWBEs from 12% to 20%. Well, we have a list of those minority-owned and women-owned businesses, and that's who we contract with. But what we said was, why don't we turn that out and put it online so everyone can see it? So if you want to build a fence, or you need some brickwork, or you need a lawyer, or whatever it is, that's one avenue you can. So we know that other public entities, other governments, and other private businesses are using that data portal to do purchasing.
Excellent. Are youth-owned businesses included?
Absolutely. In fact, our youngest participant is 12 years old, and her name's Kenya Bean, and she owns Bee Chill Lemonade.
Absolutely. Kenya's a great friend of mine.
Oh, okay. She's on there, and not only is she on there, but she's also participated. We talk about COVID. It has hit small business really hard, and we have some grant programs and loan programs, and she's been able to take part in that too. So we encourage, if you know some businesses out there who aren't registered with us, get registered, and we'll put them on that website.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a great question, Jalen. That was our final question for the mayors tonight. I want to thank both of you for being here, and I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Glenn.
Thank you both for taking the time again to speak with our students and our audience. We really appreciate it. At LITE, we are committed to ensuring that our students are ready to be entrepreneurs, leaders in business here in Memphis of tomorrow. I would like to know, before we close out tonight, in your own words, Mayor Strickland and Mayor Harris, what can our students do to help enact change in the community now as they raise their voices to try to make change and to move us forward in the 21st century that allows us all to work together and enact a program and a change that will actually be beneficial for them? It was a long question, I'm sorry.
I'll start by saying I think anything is the answer, is the short answer, but let me give a little more detail on what they might do. I think what you want to think about is whatever issue you're passionate about, try to drill down on that one issue and then drill down even further, right? Because this is local government, right? So drill down as much as you can on something as specific as possible, and then give voice to your issue, give voice to your concern, and give voice to your concern to a group of elected officials. Right? We're just talking about process because this is kind of democratic governance, and there's no one that controls every single lever of power in our government. So you got to give voice to your issue and give voice to several different people, and then follow up with them. Right? Follow up with them. So whatever your issue is, and I think that there will be so much learning along the way. And I can guarantee you, if you give voice to your issue and you follow up on your issue, you can drive a conversation around anything that you think is important. You can't really make the outcome the way you want it to be, because there's a lot of different things that go into all this. But you can drive a conversation around any issue you think is important if you're willing to give voice to a concern, be pretty specific, talk to a group of folks, and then follow up on it. So that's what I would encourage y'all to do. Pick an issue, give voice to it, and follow up. Thanks.
I want to first of all, I want to say I see several people with the patches on their shirts. I believe those are our city programs. So thank you for wearing those shirts. Secondly, I want to echo Mayor Harris. More specific you are, the better. Now, I'm not saying you can argue for equity and have that rhetoric, but it's also nice to have a specific proposal. And then, like he said, keep going. Lastly, vote and register people to vote. I don't know when the last day to register is. Mayor Harris may know, but We got a big election coming up. So register as many people. As long as you're 18 on the day of the election, you can vote.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Thank you, Mayor Strickland, for joining LITE for this important conversation. We would like to allow our mayors to leave the forum at this time, if you would so choose, or you can hang around and hear our students. We're going to talk about what they've heard today, the impact that everything that's happening in America that is having on them, and their solution for change and what their role will be as we move forward into an election year, a very important election year, may I add, and adding their voice to the unrest that's happening all over America in the ways that they could effectively do that. And with that, I will turn our program back over to Marissa Pittman. Thank you.
Thank you. I am excited to have this discussion with you all. It is important for us as youth to discuss our role in the fight for racial equity and economic development. I would like to welcome back Innovation Fellows Jalen Washington, Lauren Rounds, and Julian Cross, Anais Luna and Jordan McAtee from the Shelby County Youth Council, and Makai Mosby and Tatiana Pope from the Memphis Youth City Council. Now, before we get started, I want to bring a few guidelines to this conversation. Make space, take space. If you realize you're not speaking frequently, speak up. And if you realize that you're speaking quite frequently, take a step back and give others the opportunity to do so. Anais and Jordan, could you all speak to the work that the Shelby County Youth Council is doing to advance racial equity and economic development?
Yeah, definitely. So as Marissa said, my name is Anais. I'm a District 10 representative of Shelby County Youth Council. And so far what we have done with the Shelby County Youth Council, last year was first year, was create a couple of recommendations that we were able to present to Mayor Lee Harris. Now, these dealt with education, mental health, poverty, and crime. And a lot of them sort of tackled being able to, institute resources for students and youth. We're starting with new people and we're creating new recommendations. Hopefully we're working our way towards a summit, but in terms of that, really working towards, really being able to present these recommendations that we have created to, school boards and city members. So possibly in the future, they could potentially seek to implement these. So that's really our process right now. We are, really starting relatively new. So we're really hoping to, gain some traction and be able to really work on our plans and our recommendations to put that work out there.
You all have done a lot of amazing work considering last year was your first year. And so Makai and Tatiana, can you all speak about the work that the Memphis Youth City Council is doing to advance racial equity and economic development?
So, again, thank you, LITE Memphis and Marissa, for having the Memphis Youth City Council to be a part of this wonderful discussion. We started the work a couple of months ago. We started by doing just a simple survey. I'm not going to say a month ago. It's probably a year ago today when we did the survey at the senior event that the Office of Youth Services had hosted. We did a survey where we asked kids our age, hey, why wouldn't you want to stay in Memphis? What can we do to change your opinion? And we've still been trying to gather all of those thoughts together, because if you can imagine, I don't even call it a headache, if you can imagine so many different personalities answering those surveys. So we're all trying to sum it up to one big resolution to present to our city leadership. It's just the important work that we're doing is just trying to make sure that everyone is heard, number one, and that nobody feels as though they're not heard. So that's how we're trying to, that's step one of the process, is making sure that everyone is heard and the proper way to present their ideas and their concerns to our city leadership.
To piggyback off of Makai, to magnify that we are trying to echo everyone's voices. We surveyed Shelby County school students. We also surveyed private school students. So it wasn't just we surveyed Shelby County school students, students who are majority African American, but we also reached out to those private school students who aren't majority African American, because we see that their voice still matters no matter what color you are.
That's really important, Tatiana, and that's a really important part of equity, giving everybody that same level of opportunity. So how do you all feel about the panel with the mayors, what we heard from them today? And if there are any questions maybe that you wish we would have asked, just your initial feedback.
I just like to say I felt like I learned a lot from the panel. I feel like there were some programs going on that I didn't know about, and I feel more informed about them. But I also feel like they could have, well, I wouldn't say they. I know some of the answers we were getting from Mayor Strickland, it was a lot of the past and not more of what we're doing right now to get towards those questions and what we wanted. He was going back into like what he did at the beginning of the campaign, which is great. And I'm very happy those things are being done, but what are we doing now? Like what's in plan now to get to these solutions that you're giving us? These solutions are great, but what are we doing to, actually display those to get those done? So I feel like he could have gone more into depth about that.
Julian, what do you think?
Overall, the virtual town hall was, it was all right. There were, similar to Lauren, there were a few questions that were answered that I didn't quite get the response as to how we're going to tackle it in the future. We talked about, this is what we've done to try and do it, although it didn't work. But, what are we going to do as far as the future as in going forward from here in tackling those issues?
I know that Mayor Strickland said that he was open to meeting with us again. So possibly there could be a part 2 of this conversation to talk about what we're going to do now. And now I'd like to hear from Makai. I saw your hand was raised.
The conversation was, to say, interesting. I can say interesting because I feel as though when there are youth involved in conversations, things have to be broken down to the simplest form, to where we can understand what you're saying, where we can comprehend what you're saying. I definitely love the fact that, Shelby County government is doing the eviction fund, is helping those out that are struggling with COVID-19. That's a big plus. That's an amazing thing to see our leadership care about, what's going on with us personally, if that makes sense. And I do agree with what Julian said. A lot of the answers were very confusing. But I guess it's just politics, to where we just have to take what we are given and run with it. But the thought of having this conversation again, it excites me, if you can understand that now. It excites me. And I look forward to continuing the conversation, because it's a very important conversation that I thought caught them off guard, that we are youth that understand what's happening. We want to know what is going to help us in the future, and the fact that we got some answers to some of the questions. That's really good. That shows that we're making great progress.
I know we are pressed on time, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next question. We just talked about what we thought and the issues that were surrounding us as youth. But how, as young people, can we mobilize for equality? I can start this question, I guess, take it off my moderator hat to be a panelist. Something that I say a lot of the time is that we have to find our lanes respectively. So for instance, some people might want to protest. Some people could organize and help with bail funds, or some people can advocate for policies. Some folks who are 18 and older can vote. Also, both for our panelists and our viewers, if you have not yet registered to vote, please do that now. ShelbyVote.org, I believe it might be .com. Don't quote me on that. Also, the census is coming up soon, so that's something that you can do. I digress. It's important for everyone to find where they fit in within the movement, because I feel like it's unfair to put that burden on people, especially around racial equity. 400 plus years of oppression rested on one person to undo is too much. So everyone finding their place in the movement. Would anybody else like to share their thoughts?
I think one thing we could do as youth is educate and advocate. I think a huge misconception about youth that we need to be like spoken for and spoken to, and no one ever seems to realize that we could speak for others and represent others. We could be that advocate for underrepresented community, for women, for African Americans, for Native Americans. We can be that voice for them. Just because we're younger does not mean that we cannot speak. So educating ourselves on basic history, basic politics, laws that's being passed through the House and Congress right now, and then advocating for change that we need to see.
I completely agree with what you just said.
Julian, do you want to go ahead and go?
I totally agree with Tatiana. Education is the key to success, as we often hear. I feel like it's the way we're educating ourselves also. We can't just solely rely on social media for news or, you know, the latest information on what's going on. We have to educate ourselves the proper way. And also, this is a very trying time that we are living in, and we have to be cautious and we have to be careful of what we're doing as individuals and as youth. And Tatiana, you're totally right as to what you're saying about the youth being a voice for themselves and for others and for their peers. I think that's extremely important.
Jordan or Jalen, would you all like to chime in?
You said how can we mobilize for equality? I believe this is a loaded question, but I believe that educational equality is a big deal at this time for youth. I am homeschooled and have been for years. Youth in Memphis and Shelby County has been out of school, unschooled, and left behind since March. They received packets, but let's be honest, what did that help? School has been playing Russian roulette with the education of scholars since and before the pandemic even started. I believe that this pandemic revealed a lot of things that were wrong and what needed to be fixed or revisited in homes and at schools. We can begin to mobilize by bringing youth to the front of conversations, but by truly standing behind what we all in and leaving no child behind. Our teachers need to be virtually trained. Our parents need to be reintroduced to being the first teacher, and students need to take school serious regardless of whether it's online or in person.
Thank you, Jordan, for sharing your thoughts. I do want to acknowledge that today was the first day of school for students in Shelby County. And that brings a lot. I think any crisis can reveal things that are underlying in a broken system. And that's exactly what COVID-19 did. And I think these conversations help us figure out where we go from here. So thank you for that. And so for our last question, what is one thing that you all wish that people who are not members of Gen Z knew about the work and the current space that young people are in? And if we can keep these, I'm sorry, Lauren, if we can keep these responses to about 30 seconds so we can get to everyone.
Okay. Just that what the work that we're trying to do, we're unpacking generations of work. This isn't just on us. Like, we're trying to undo years of oppression, years of inequality, and we can't all do it by ourselves. They're always looking at us like, well, what are y'all doing to help? Well, it was you guys' job to do it before us. And so now we have to take on the torch and try and do the best that we can in the times that we're in. So I just wish people would think about that before they open their mouths.
I just simply think that they have to acknowledge that every youth, we're different from each other. I'm different from Marissa. Marissa is different from Julian. And I feel like all of the members who are not a part of Generation Z, they put us under one umbrella. When one of us falls, we all fall, which I understand that, but at the same time, you have to realize that not all of Generation Z can be in these types of conversations. So we are the ones that will have to take back to our friends and classmates the thoughts that were shared, how we'll move on from here. So I just feel like they should be patient. I feel like our generation is rushed to find answers from things that Lauren said is not even our fault. The things that we're trying to find answers from that we're not even supposed to have the answers to. We just have to be a team, but also notice that everyone is different. That brings everyone brings something different to the table. So I just feel like that has to be acknowledged.
I wish people would know that Gen Z is not afraid to have those hard conversations. We're in this era of social media, so you could easily find a man being murdered by the police or a man getting paralyzed by police on YouTube, on Twitter, or Instagram. You could easily find those things, and that accessibility forces Gen Z to have those hard conversations. And so hard conversations like this with the mayors and leadership in your city, or hard conversations with people who don't agree with your political perspective. And so Gen Z we're forced to have hard conversations, and we shouldn't be overlooked in those hard conversations just because we're looked at as younger and underqualified.
I want to hear everyone's perspective on this question, so if we can have everyone else who hasn't gone, keep your responses brief.
Okay, so I want to agree with everything you guys said. Just thinking about, we are Gen Z. We have all these generations resting upon our shoulders, and they're all looking at us, expecting, comparing us to them. And I think it's important to know that we are completely different, and every generation, has its own experiences. And the way we're, bringing up these hard conversations, as you guys stated, is, a way that we probably haven't really seen before. And I feel like older generations have to understand that this is really the way how Gen Z works and how we're able to work from there and create a change.
I believe we are a different breed of young people. We are a generation that has been taught partly about the civil rights movement and are living and living and leading a new movement. We believe in justice for all, equality for all, and education for all. We will lead and be the face of a new civil rights movement. We are a generation of entrepreneurs that may not go to college. We are the next set of leaders. So it's time for mentors to step up to the plate and mentor us so that we can continue to work and fight for all inequalities and dismantle racism. We are waiting, we are watching, and we are listening.
Thank you, Jordan, for that. Jalen, if you just have a sentence to express how you feel so we can go ahead and wrap up.
One thing that I think is very important about Generation Z is that I think as a public policy major, I think it's important for us to understand the policy process. And a lot of times when I'm in class at UTC, I think about, oh God, why did I choose this major? Because policy is quite complex and quite intricate. A group of people will always get the shorthand of the stick. And so with that, you have to be able to understand the whole policy process. And so I think us as young people, when you think about us fighting for certain causes and fighting for certain things that we want to be changed, if things could be changed, at the drop of a dime, or as quick as Dorothy clicked her heels, then I'm sure other people would like that as well. However, it's a process, just like everything in life. It's a process.
Okay, Jayla, I'm sorry.
I think that everybody, young people, should be taught that policy process and what that looks like from a political system. That's my remarks.
Thank you. So now let's talk about action steps briefly. In the chat, you will see links. Completing the census, the deadline is September the 30th. Registering to vote if you have not already. Be a poll worker. Tomorrow is National Poll Worker Day. So if you have not already and you're able to, I believe you have to be 16 and you will get paid, I think it's $190 for Election Day. So check that out. Check out the work of the Shelby County Youth Council. Their website is linked. The Memphis Youth City Council, LITE Memphis, and make sure you follow Pumps and Politics on social media at Pumps Politics 901. Thank you all so much for being here and for leading this conversation.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you all that are on the call and join us in this very spirited conversation. As you can tell, I'm the only one on this call in this moment that is not Gen Z, but I assure you that we are all working to enact change together. We hear you, we see you, and we acknowledge you. We realize that this has been years of injustice that has set before us, and we're all ready to roll up our sleeves and do the work. This has been a very enlightening conversation. I would like to thank our mayors again for sharing their time and their insight. And I always want to offer grace. Our mayors are human and they're doing the best work that they can, and they got in this field to enact change. So we always want to offer grace to each other as we move forward to have these difficult conversations, because they are. I thank you all that was able to join us tonight and support our students and this conversation. We will continue to have these important conversations and come up with viable solutions as we move forward. Thank you all, and good night.